All right, we'd like to welcome you today to Unplugged, our series where we interview different university representatives. I'm Matthew Sanford, Director of Advising and Counseling at Lone Star College-Montgomery, and I'll let my colleague introduce himself.
And good morning. Good morning. My name is Dr. Juan Lebron. I'm a faculty counselor and supervisor of the Transfer Center, and so excited to have one of the all-stars of Texas A&M University College Station and the engineering, the famous engineering department at TAMU. So looking forward to this interview. And we have some questions lined up for our guest, and we just would like to share these resources for all of you. Like this video, let us know if any other questions come up, and we look forward to making this connection. So we'll start off with the first question. Mr. Buchanan, if you would like to introduce yourself before that and kind of highlight the area that you represent at Texas A&M.
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Dr. LeBron. My name is John Buchanan, everyone. I'm the Director of Recruiting for the College of Engineering here at Texas A&M. Primarily, I work with undergraduate recruitment, but do a little bit with graduate recruitment as well. So I'm really pleased to be here with you guys this afternoon and looking forward to this conversation. Hope you guys will find this information useful and beneficial, and we hope that we can convince you guys to at least consider Texas A&M engineering. So thanks for having me.
Good deal. All right, and I got to tell you, I'm an Aggie as well. So I always love having Aggie in the house. So let's go ahead and get started here, John. For your first question, for someone who may be undecided, what would be your top selling points for choosing Texas A&M College of Engineering?
Yeah, great question. You can go to a lot of great engineering schools here in Texas and beyond. And really, there's very little difference among curriculums, right? I mean, physics here at Texas A&M is physics at other places as well. Same thing with statics and dynamics and things like that. I think the thing that really sets Texas A&M apart is that we believe very strongly in a team-based, collaborative learning environment, and we do a good job of providing that both in the classroom and outside the classroom. We really want our students to be technically sound, but we also want them to cultivate and develop their soft skills. How do you work as part of a team? How do you lead a team? How do you communicate? How do you, take information and analyze it and review it and share that? So that's all very, very important. And this really helps lead our students to being highly competitive in the job market when they leave Texas A&M. And that's really what it's all about, right? I mean, the time you spend at a place like Texas A&M is not just about those, 2, 3, 4 years, however long it is. It's really about what those years are going to do for you for the next 30 to 40 years of your life and career. And so right now, Texas A&M ranks #1 in Texas for the return on your investment. We rank 11th overall here in the United States. So that's something to be very proud of here at Texas A&M, and something that I hope excites you about Texas A&M is the fact that you're going to get a really, really good bang for your buck here, especially within our College of Engineering.
Well, thank you, Mr. Buchanan. As you know, potential engineering students, this goes way more than just being good in math and being good in science. What words of wisdom would you give in relation to being the most competitive applicant? Like, what are those unique skills that will make you a competitive applicant for the engineering department at A&M?
Yeah, that's a good question too. Transfer students here at Texas A&M are actually reviewed by the department to which they apply. And so there's an initial review process that happens in the Office of Admissions, but basically what they do is make sure that students meet the university minimums. Right now, that's 24 transferable hours and at least a 2.5 cumulative GPA. Once the Office of Admissions, determines that a student meets those minimums, they send the file to the department that the student specifies on the application. And so, our specific departments in engineering, mechanical engineering, chemical, civil, so on and so forth, they receive those applications, and they're the ones that make those admission decisions. So I will tell you that the majority of the decision is made based on college coursework and college grades. There's very specific coursework that is related to engineering that our departments really like to see in their applicants. But above and beyond that, we really also like to see students who have taking advantage of other opportunities, whether that's involvement with student organizations and clubs. Maybe it's an opportunity to work or intern with some sort of engineering industry. Maybe it's the opportunity to take advantage of some sort of project team that they have access to. So things like that can also help set you apart and help you stand out in that application process. But again, it's also very, very important to make sure that you take the right coursework for your intended major and maintain high grades. But I really like what you said earlier, Dr. LeBron, about math and science. It's really not about being good in math and science, or math and science coming naturally to you, or you really enjoying math and science necessarily, but it's about, are you willing to work hard in those subjects? Engineers use those concepts and those principles, but really engineers are problem solvers. And so if you like to solve problems, if you like to create and design things that are going to improve our quality of life, that's what makes a good engineer. And if you're willing to work hard in those subjects, in the math, in the science, and everything else, you're going to be a good engineer. So I appreciate you saying that as well. But I hope that helps answer that question about what can help you stand out in the process here at Texas A&M.
Thank you.
And John, we have a lot of students who want to transfer to A&M, as we noted before, into engineering. And how would you describe the most competitive programs at A&M Engineering?
So good question. I really prefer to use the term most popular as opposed to most competitive. There are certainly majors that receive a higher number of applications than others, and so I really like to utilize that. I would tell you that all of our majors are competitive. You're looking at really anything over a 3.0. I really try to encourage students to shoot for a 3.5 or higher cumulative GPA to give yourself a good solid chance of being competitive in the transfer process. But there are certainly majors that are more popular than others. Right now, computer science and mechanical engineering are by far our most popular majors when it comes to the number of transfer students applying for those. I would tell you that civil engineering, electrical and computer engineering, and then aerospace round out the top 5 most popular as far as the number of applications that are received each semester. So we have a transfer cycle in the fall, we have a transfer cycle in the spring as well. And the last several cycles, those have been pretty much the top 5 every single semester. So.
Thank you. And Mr. Buchanan, is there a set number of transfer students that A&M Engineering accepts each year? Like, is there an average range that you see accepted from a transfer standpoint?
Yeah, not really. There's not really a set number. We certainly have some goals as a college, but again, because the decisions are made at the departmental level, it's really up to them. Some majors, like I mentioned a second ago, computer science, mechanical engineering, they receive a lot of applications, so they can't accommodate everybody who's applying for their programs. So, even if you have really, really high grades and you have all the right coursework complete, that doesn't always guarantee you a spot in a major like that. But capacity really dictates the number of transfer students that are admitted, from cycle to cycle. And there's some variation to that. It just kind of depends on what's happening and what's popular at that particular point. But yeah, there's not a set number of students that we have each semester. We really want to try to provide as many opportunities to as many competitive applicants as we possibly can.
Thank you.
And John, do y'all have any strategic measures where y'all reach out to minority or special student populations in relation to engineering?
Yeah, absolutely. We've got we have some specific targeted groups, really students that come from populations that have been historically underrepresented in engineering. For us here at Texas A&M, that includes our female students, it includes our first generation college students, also Hispanic and Black. So we certainly want to try to do whatever we can to increase those populations, not just because that's something we want to do here at Texas A&M, but because the industry is asking for that, right? Industries all over the place in engineering are trying to diversify and trying to impact those percentages and numbers, again, of students that come from historically underrepresented populations. So we do have specific messaging that goes out to those students, encouraging them to apply. We also do a great job, especially for our transfer students, of providing opportunities once they get here. We have a lot of retention efforts for students in those targeted demographics, groups and programs. Texas A&M, like our Women in Engineering, we have an Access and Inclusion program that works specifically with underrepresented minorities and our first generation college students. There's also a wide variety of student organizations within the college and also outside the College of Engineering that are really geared toward helping those students find their community and find their niche. We have a wide variety of professional societies that are represented here in the College of Engineering: the National Society of Hispanic Engineers, National Society of Black Engineers. So we've got a lot of programs and student organizations that are available to make sure that those students stay engaged, they get connected, and then they, hopefully give back at the same time once they leave Texas A&M.
Okay. Thank you. And do you accept students in the spring and fall, both? And if so, are there any differences for applicants as it relates to applying in the spring versus applying for the fall?
Yeah, great question. We do, absolutely. So we do accept spring and fall applicants. Right now, we get the majority of applications for a fall semester. So the spring semester, there's typically fewer applicants. It's not that the process is identical, right? The application process is identical for fall and spring admission. The question I get a lot too is, because you receive fewer applications for the spring, is it easier to get in? And I always say no, right? I mean, they still use the same process. They're looking at your coursework and your grades when they're making that decision. And so whether you have that coursework when you apply for a spring semester or a fall semester, that doesn't make a difference as far as the whether or not you're more or less competitive. It's just about having those credentials. So we certainly do accept applicants for both semesters, but typically we see a greater number of applicants for a fall semester.
Thank you.
Hey, John, one question that, we try to address a lot is to help students, kind of think about transfer shock from the community college level to the university. And we know with engineering that there's a significant, rigor of coursework and things like this. And what would you be able to tell our students in relation to transfer shock and how it relates at A&M, Texas A&M in relation to engineering? If you're thinking about rigor of coursework, student life, and so forth?
So in my experience, most transfer students have already established good study habits. They've already established good time management skills, and those are really critical to success in general, but especially in engineering curriculum. If you know how to manage your time and dedicate and devote enough time to your academic studies and then fill in, the gaps in your schedule with other stuff, that's going to serve you very, very well. I will say that, students coming from a community college may need to make some adjustments when they get to Texas A&M, but I really recommend that they really seek advice from staff and faculty that are here to help them, but also from other students. There's tons of students that have gone through the same process previously. And so I encourage our transfer students to reach out to them, to connect with them, and, ask them, how did you handle this? How did you get through that first semester after you transferred from Lone Star or wherever it was? And I also encourage students to really take advantage of the academic and personal resources available. So we've got, a wide variety of academic resources, study sessions, and our engineering help desk and things like that. But in addition to that, we also provide opportunities for students to connect with resources just to help them adjust personally, right? That's also part of that transfer shock. It's not just about the rigor of the coursework, but also about maybe leaving home for the first time, moving, far away, all that sort of stuff, coming to a new place, all that sort of stuff, coming to a big campus like Texas A&M can be a shock. And so we want to make sure not only that our students are taking care of themselves from an academic perspective, but also from a personal perspective. Are you getting enough sleep? Are you eating enough food? Are you getting some exercise? Are you having some fun? Are you able to balance those things out? And so there's even a lot of resources available here at Texas A&M to help with that. In fact, within the College of Engineering, a couple of years ago, we piloted a representative from our counseling and psychological services department here in the College of Engineering. We started out with, I think we did 2 days a week where there was a counselor from our counseling and psychological services office that was actually here in our main engineering complex 2 days a week. It was so well received that now we have worked with counseling and psychological services to hire a full-time counselor that works with our engineering students, and they're available 40 hours a week just to our engineering students. And so again, that can be a lot of things, right? It can be emotional stress. It could be relationship type issues. I mean, it could be all sorts of different things. But I would just want our students to hear and your students to hear that we've got resources like that. So it's not just about, hey, we want you to make good grades, but it's also about we want you to take care of yourself because all those things work together to help you be successful in the long run.
Wow, impressive.
Thank you. Thank you. And earlier you mentioned those top 5 programs in demand as far as engineering, like aerospace and mechanical and civil and all of that. Can you share with us a little bit about those majors within the engineering department that get less attention, but that may result in solid careers or stable incomes or that do have a good return of investment? I noticed that there's mechatronics and you have some other. So are there others that don't get as much attention that students should be looking into?
Yeah, that there definitely are. Obviously, those popular ones that we mentioned, everybody knows about those, right? And everybody hears about those. They're familiar. They've been around a long, long time. But there are certainly some majors that we offer here that are less well known, that are relatively new, even here at Texas A&M, but that still provide a excellent pathway for long-term success. A couple that I'll mention that come to mind off the top of my head. One is industrial distribution. It's actually been around for quite a while here at Texas A&M, but what it is an engineering degree, but it has a lot of business coursework built into it. And so students with that program typically end up in sales, supply chain management. They work for companies like Amazon. They work for companies like eBay, obviously Google and things like that. But they really work on the business side of things, but they're using their engineering acumen to help develop and create new processes to make the companies more efficient, to increase their bottom line, all that sort of stuff. So it's a very unique program that has that business aspect added into it. Right now, we have the #1 industrial distribution program in the country. I think they still currently, and I have to double check this, but with the pandemic right now, but prior to the pandemic, I know they had 100% job placement rate within 6 months after graduation. That's a fantastic statistic, right? Not very many programs, engineering or otherwise, can claim that. And so our industrial distribution program is very, very solid. The other one that comes to mind is something called materials science and engineering. And what those students do, they do a wide variety of things, but one of the really cool things that I've heard about recently, when aircraft go past a certain speed, they break the sound barrier, and there's a sonic boom, right? When an aircraft breaks the sound barrier. So what some of our material science students are working on are new alloys that will actually, when there's an electric charge that's sent through the different alloys, they can actually basically shapeshift in mid-flight. And so when an aircraft goes supersonic, there is no boom. And that's going to be amazing. Once we get that done, it'll allow us to have, hopefully at some point, allow us to have supersonic flight over land. Right now, we can't do that because the FAA won't allow it. We haven't had a supersonic commercial airliner since the Concorde, and that was just to go from here to England basically years and years ago. So there's programs like that where students are working with very, very I mean, cutting edge technology that is just unheard of. And you think about material science, it doesn't really sound, it doesn't really sound sexy, like mechanical engineering. You don't really know what it's about, but that gives you an example of what some of our students are doing and what some of those industries are involved with. So, those students are working for NASA, for SpaceX, Raytheon, Boeing, L3, some of those air and space industries where, sometimes you might think, oh, I've got to have an aerospace engineering degree to work for those companies. No, you could do material science and engineering and still work in that field. So those are a couple that come to mind that are less well known, but that can set you up very, very nicely for long-term success.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
Yeah, I think that's a great area because we have so many students who kind of think in silos, and they think that they have to do this in order to get into industry in certain areas. So
Yeah.
it's good to hear you say that.
Well, and I would say, that there's, for transfer students, it's a little more difficult, right? In other words, the way our process is set up, because they're applying directly to a specific department, they kind of have to know what they want to pursue before they actually apply. But we really try to encourage them to be thinking about it from an industry perspective as opposed to a specific major. So, is it air and space that you see yourself in? Is it oil and gas or some other energy industry? Is it health and medicine, business and finance? I mean, where do you see yourself long term? We have multiple majors that we offer here at Texas A&M that can get you into each one of those fields. And so we really try to encourage students to think about it from that perspective, as opposed to, as you said, kind of siloing themselves or limiting themselves just based on the title of a specific degree.
Mm-hmm. Great point. Question I have for you, because engineering is so rigorous and we know A&M's program is exceptional, you had mentioned about the counseling and psychological services support that's offered there. With the rigor of the coursework, John, what types of academic support systems are in place? I know you all have tutoring, I'm sure, and academic coaching, but how do you all incorporate that into the overall program within engineering?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we've got a wide variety of opportunities. I'm not going to be able to list all of them, obviously, right now, but some of the ones that I'll mention, we have a very new engineering education complex here at Texas A&M. It's called the Zachary Engineering Education Complex. We call it ZAC for short. It is in my opinion, I'm a little biased, but it's the premier engineering facility on a college campus right now in 2021. It is currently the largest academic building here at Texas A&M. It's a little over 530,000 square feet. So it's a very large complex. But what it does is we designed it to be a one-stop shop. Students won't spend 100% of their time here, but they can spend an awful lot of time here. So obviously there's learning studios where students can go to class. There's a 60,000 plus square foot maker space. We have common labs as well with all sorts of equipment and tools. But there's also some dedicated space for some of these academic resources and some of those personal resources as well. So we do have an engineering help desk, which is free peer tutoring that's available for any of the STEM related courses. So engineering, math, chemistry, physics, any of those courses that students need help with. Right now, all the peer tutoring is being conducted virtually, but eventually we'll move it back to in person. We have the university recently established a math learning center. We know that math is obviously critical to success here in engineering, but in a lot of other fields across our campus. And so the Math Learning Center has a main office, but they also rotate around basically on a daily basis to different areas of campus. So for example, in non-pandemic times, we host the Math Learning Center here in the Zachary complex on Friday afternoons. And so students can go get additional help with their calculus courses, with differential equations, linear algebra, all those sorts of courses. There is a general academic success center here at Texas A&M that works with students from all sorts of majors. We have a university writing center as well to help students with papers and even resumes and things like that. There's a wide variety of supplemental instruction sessions. Those are typically peer-led as well, but sometimes they're also led by faculty and staff. And those are, just opportunities to get additional help with a specific course at Texas A&M. So obviously not required, but certainly something to definitely take advantage of. So those things, those are just a few examples of some of the resources that are available to our students, whether that's here, in our main engineering complex, or maybe it's in another engineering facility or somewhere else here on campus. I also really encourage students to take advantage of their faculty and staff. I think that's one thing that students don't feel like they can do here at Texas A&M, mainly because we're so large. We've got 64,000 students here. 20,000 of those are engineering students. So sometimes students think, my professor, he's not going to know, she's not going to know my name. It's not going to do me any good to show up at his or her office hours. And I would tell you that's absolutely false. They want to see you. They want to meet you. They want to get to know you. We have over 700 faculty just within the College of Engineering alone, and we're very intentional. We are committed, in fact, to no engineering course larger than 100 students. So we've got 20,000 engineering students, but we also, again, we do a very good job of maintaining small classes, maintaining that team-based learning environment. And so it's not like you're just in an engineering course with 300 students every single class. That's in fact, that's the opposite of what we do. And so I really encourage our students to reach out to faculty, staff, and then other students as well as resources. But definitely we have a lot of established academic resources. I mentioned earlier when we were talking about some of the underrepresented populations, they work very closely in retention efforts. So, our Women in Engineering program, our FGen mentoring program, our Access and Inclusion, they also provide opportunities to be successful in academics. And so it could be tutoring, it could be connecting with industry reps, it could be their own personal career fairs. I mean, there's all sorts of different things and different ways that we help the students in that regard. So,
Great.
Thank you. Question for me, you alluded to this earlier in your response. As the workforce continues to shift, particularly right now in the middle of the pandemic, what's trending in the field of engineering as it relates to majors? And I know you mentioned some of those unique programs within your department, but when we look at oil and gas, right, that industry has been impacted and shifts have had to take place. What's in the horizon as far as the high demand or what's trending within the field of engineering?
Yeah, I would tell you that obviously there's certainly still a need here in Texas for engineers. Prior to the pandemic, this was back in 2016, I think. The Workforce Commission here in Texas estimated that there was going to be a shortage of over 50,000 engineers by 2024. That's just in Texas alone, and I think that will still happen. I think there will still be a shortage of engineers here in just a couple of years. There's a huge generational shift that's happening. So yes, some of our industries have been impacted by policy and stuff like that. But there's also a huge generational shift that's happening. A lot of people are moving into retirement age. They're leaving the engineering workforce. So that's opening up some opportunities. But there's also new technologies coming online all the time. And so you guys know as well as I do that your cell phone is basically outdated as soon as you purchase it. Amazon is working to develop ways to deliver your packages via drone, literally from floating fortresses that are in the sky. And so there's things like that are coming online all the time. Even though the energy industry, specifically oil and gas here in Texas, especially in recent weeks, has taken a little bit of a hit, I think that we will still see strong performance from that industry in the long run. I think that tech degrees are really, really hot right now. That's one of the reasons why computer science is so popular here. But the companies like Amazon and Google and Apple, those are great industries to look into. The space industry is, I think, making a comeback. NASA just landed Perseverance on Mars. SpaceX has opened up a new facility down in South Texas in Boca Chica. So there's opportunities like that that are coming online right here in our community, right in our community of Texas. And so there's a lot of opportunity like that. I will tell you that many of our students who graduated a year ago, graduated in May of 2020, were impacted by COVID, by the pandemic. Some students had job offers rescinded, but I think many students had job offers delayed. I'm thinking of one of our ambassadors in particular. He has a chemical engineering degree from Texas A&M, was set to go work for Shell there in Houston. And they just asked him if he could delay his start date. He was originally supposed to start in June. They asked him if he could delay it to January of this year. And so what he did is he took that opportunity to just transition directly into a graduate program here at Texas A&M. And so he started a grad degree in the summer, spent the rest of the year here in College Station, moved to Houston in January of this year, and so started working for Shell and is actually completing his graduate degree online. So we made some opportunities like that available to our students. There were internships last summer that were canceled, but what our Student Engineers Council did is they worked with other industry representatives to provide some virtual internship opportunities over the summer. So even amidst this pandemic, it's still a good time to be an Aggie engineer, and there's still lots of opportunity that are out there. You just you have to look a little bit harder right now, but again, I think that we're trending in the right direction as far as moving past the pandemic, and I think we'll start to see many of those industries, move toward offering more opportunities for internships and co-ops and job opportunities and things like that. So I hope that helps answer that question.
Yes.
Yeah, as far as what's going on and what's happening right now.
Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, that was great input, John. It's kind of good to be able to see beyond the past year.
Yes. And it's easy right now for us to get bogged down in that, right? I mean, we're still living it. And so it's easy for us to, to kind of still feel like we're in limbo and feel like, when's this going to end? That's totally normal, but I still think it's a really, really good time to be an engineer, and especially to be an Aggie engineer. So.
Sure. Well, John, I know we're about out of time. I wanted to ask one more question that I think would be important for students to hear about, and that's scholarships in relation to transfer. Are there any opportunities for students in transferring into engineering, either locally or broader, that you are aware of?
Yeah, really good question. So when students apply for admission, when they submit a transfer application, that also allows them to be reviewed automatically for any of the transfer scholarships that we offer at Texas A&M, whether that's at the university level, at the college level, maybe it's something through the Association of Former Students or the Texas A&M Foundation. There's a wide variety of scholarship opportunities. The other thing I really like to encourage engineering students with is the fact that if you come here and you do very well, you're also going to be very competitive for continuing student scholarships. Right now in the College of Engineering, that's where the majority of our scholarship dollars are. It's within the departments. It's designated for continuing students. So whether we're talking at incoming transfer, even incoming freshmen, the College of Engineering doesn't have a lot of awards right now for those students in the first semester. But if you come here and do very well, you're going to be very competitive for some of those continuing scholarships. And so those can be very, very nice awards. I mean, anything from $1,000 to $1,500 a semester, all the way up to $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 a semester, depending on the particular scholarship. So I like to encourage students with that. I always also kind of give a caveat with that there's obviously no guarantee, but again, if you do very well, you can be very competitive for some of those continuing student scholarship dollars. But there's really not an additional when you're applying, there's not an additional process you have to go through to be reviewed for just the standard transfer scholarships through Texas A&M. You just submit your application, your admission application, and the scholarships office gets that, and they review you based on what you provide on that admissions application, in addition to what's on your transcript, right? How well have you done at a place like Lone Star, and that helps you, helps them review you for those awards. We also encourage students to look at outside resources. There's a lot of great search engines that are out there. One of my favorites is it's just slipping my mind. I apologize. FastWeb. FastWeb.com is a great scholarship search engine. It's free to use. It does take a little bit more time, right? It's a little more time intensive because you typically have to fill out a separate application for each of the opportunities for which you apply. So it's a little more time consuming, but $500 here and there adds up very, very quickly. And so we encourage students certainly to look into outside resources as well. Don't feel like you have to be limited to what Texas A&M can offer you. So I hope that helps answer that question.
Great answers. I think students will be eager to hear that. Dr. LeBron, do you have any other questions or thoughts you want to throw?
No, I just wanted to thank you, Mr. Buchanan, for highlighting Texas A&M University and the engineering department and the amazing programs and resources for our students. And we look forward to continuing this partnership and reconnecting with you and the fellow Aggie Nation there at College Station, Texas A&M University. Thank you so much for sharing so much knowledge, so many resources, and looking forward to continue seeing our Mavericks transfer into Texas A&M.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you 100%. I appreciate you guys giving me the opportunity. Students, I hope that this has been beneficial to you all as well. And I hope that we can meet you guys in person at some point in the near future. But if you have questions, feel free to reach out to us. The best way to get in touch with us is engineering-recruiters at tamu.edu. And we monitor that email inbox on a daily basis. We try to get you a response within 24 to 48 hours, if not sooner. So feel free to reach out to us at any time. We're happy to help answer any questions you guys may have.
Good deal, John. Thank you so much. And students, this is a great look at Texas A&M College of Engineering. Come to the Track Center, connect with us virtually or in Building C, and we'd be happy to help you. You take care.
All right.
Take care.
See you, everyone. Bye-bye.